Good evening. Welcome to July's Affordable Housing Trust meeting. We're just gathering our quorum.
And it looks like the two attendees I had, good evening, everybody. The two attendees that two went to a 0. So maybe they went back to their emails or let's give it a minute here. And okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to welcome Rob
Carla
as a panelist and Carla as well. Carla, hang on. So Rob and Carla, you should both be getting alerts on your screen, invitations to be a panelist, and just say yes to that.
Okay.
Hi, Carla.
Hi.
Good evening, Robert.
Good evening, everyone.
All right, so we are still hoping to see Allegra and Alex.
Correct.
Carla, are you a wildcat?
My husband's from Kentucky, and I lived there for 5 years. So
Where in Kentucky?
Paducah. So that's our our favorite college basketball team. Yes.
Maybe we should have a trust meeting where everyone wears their colors of their favorite team.
Right.
Yeah.
And Greg, we have not heard, we did not hear that Alex couldn't make it.
I did not know, and he is around this summer. I know. We did hear from PJ who can't make it tonight.
Right. Yes.
What's the quorum, Greg?
Quorum is it's a majority, right? So it's 5.
So we have a quorum.
Good.
And most importantly, we've got all the new members who we were expecting. And so why don't we go ahead and jump into it? So I'll just share, Paula and Allegra, that because we didn't have any urgent business this evening, Greg and I thought that this would be a good opportunity to do, in effect, part 1 of a onboarding where we would talk about what we've actually done in the last year, so you get a sense of what this trust is doing and where we are heading and the kind of questions that we're considering, so that you can start thinking about where you want to put your energy and how we are functioning as a group. So the rough plan is for Greg is going to kick off with reviewing our major activities. I'm going to tell you about the strategy that we developed and kind of agreed to last year, and how that structures our work in subcommittees. And then we'll review kind of what's in the pipeline in various ways. And, the whole time, please jump in with questions. We're going to be reviewing slides. We'll send you a copy of the slides, so don't feel like you have to try to memorize anything, but just get a sense of what's going on, and so you can start to think about what kind of activities you're enthusiastic about, and the policy issues that we already started talking about at our last meeting. So if there's no questions at this point, or if there are any, let's field them. But otherwise, Greg, take it away.
Great. And I just want to go ahead and recognize some esteemed folks in our audience tonight, including Councilmember Ryan, I should say, and Representative Mindy Dome, and of course the esteemed Carol Lewis, who is, we all know well. So with that, I will go ahead and share some slides here. Let's find the window.
And actually, I forgot, Greg, that you had noted that we could have some introductions.
And yeah, so, sure.
Why don't we start with that? Of course, my name is Gaston de los Reyes, and I'm currently chair. But I think that it would be great for especially for new members to introduce themselves. Bob, you want to start off?
Sure. I'm Bob Pomeroy, and relatively new to Amherst. Been here a little over a year now, living in Amity Place, and just pleased to be on the committee. Hope I can contribute.
Thank you so much, Bob. Robert?
Yep. So I'm Robert Allingham. So I've been an Amherst resident for about 4 years now, and I work for the Amherst Business Improvement District. So very active in the Amherst area, and I'm very excited to be a part of this trust.
Thank you. Carla?
Carla Rash, and I've lived in Amherst since 2012, and I'm also new to the board, but looking forward to, I still have a lot to learn, but looking forward to it.
Great. Allegra?
I am Allegra Clark. I have been back in Amherst since 2018 and on the board since 2021, I believe. And glad that we have some new faces.
Wonderful. Paul?
I'm Paul Bockelman, Town Manager, and been here since 2016, but also went to college here.
Greg?
Yeah, and I'm Greg Rashane. I am staff to the Housing Trust. I've been in this role for about going on 2 years in the fall, I guess. This is my first municipal role, but I've got a long history working on housing stuff as an advocate through board service, as a general rabble-rouser at various city councils around the country. So yeah, that's me. And I'm super excited that we have some new participants in our efforts here. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started with our overview here. And by all means, interrupt or stop me, or I'll try to avoid acronyms, but hit the brakes if I use an overwhelming one. So let me just share here. And I go over to that. So can folks see my my blindingly white screen there?
Yep, looks good.
All right, great. So the trust, as an entity, you can see our mission here. It's also on our webpage. But our work is to promote the town's affordable housing priorities as determined through the most recent town housing plan, particularly to create safe, decent, and affordable housing for our most vulnerable populations. The most recent town housing plan you'll hear about in a few minutes, actually. So I'll get to that. Yep. So our some of the highlighted sort of capital investments that we've made thus far as an entity since we were born around 2018. The first thing that's been formally built is this development called East Gables, which is over on Route 9, right near Amherst College. This is built by an organization called Valley CDC. And it's got 28 deeply affordable studio apartments and largely aimed at folks vulnerable to or coming out of homelessness. And that's been a real success as far as its addition to the community so far. It opened in the fall of 24, I believe, maybe 23. It's a little hazy. We've also made an investment in and played a very active role beyond just investing, in a project by Wayfinders, which is another regional affordable housing developer. This is a rendering because it's not built yet. It is permitted by the town, and the trust and town have made various investments in it. It is now in a queue to get state permitting. I just had a little error there on my screen. Can folks still hear me?
Yep, you're fine.
Okay, I don't know what happened to is the PDF?
No, it says decoding failed.
Yeah, oh boy. Let's close this one. I'm going to share again here. It's a different
That's fine.
a different reader, but okay. The fun of technology. So this is by a regional affordable home developer called Wayfinders, formerly known as HAP Housing, some years ago. It's actually a development at two separate sites at 31 Southeast Street and a proximate site over on Belchertown Road. And the town actually sort of RFP'd this property you're looking at 31 Southeast Street. This is surplus town property. There's an old school here you can see in the back. And then we also purchased a separate, the town did a separate lot over on Belchertown Road to make it a viable project and give it enough units. So then a third sort of major capital investment that we've made is Amherst Community Homes, which is also being built as we speak by Valley CDC up in North Amherst off Ball Lane and Montague Road. And so these are, in a very, very exciting fashion, 30 duplexes, 15 duplexes, 30 units aimed at homeownership, which is hard to do in the affordable homes world. This is a super exciting project for Amherst in the region and Valley CDC. And that's getting built right now and should be ready for occupancy sometime late summer, early fall next year, which is fantastic. So then kind of going forward a little bit, kind of zooming in more recently to other investments that we've made. I didn't go all the way back. So there has been some stuff kind of preceding my tenure, but this roughly all starts when I joined the team here. We made a $180,000 investment into an effort led by Craig's Doors and sort of leveraging, about I think around 2 or 3 times that in state funds to support a scattered site leased housing effort here in Amherst. These are sort of private market apartments that are leased in order to support a specific target population of vulnerable folks that Craig's Doors, which is a local shelter provider, is supporting. We spent $25,000 to support the Amherst Community Land Trust, which is another local more earlier stage nonprofit affordable housing organization. And we kicked in $25,000 to help one of their homeowners get over the hump and buy a home in 23. The aforementioned the Amherst Community Homes effort by Valley Community Development, we've made 2 separate investments into. The first one kind of at the front end of their process, and then toward the very end of their pre-development process, when they had a gap, we came back and we filled that gap as a trust. So you can see the 2 separate efforts here. And then a smaller amount on a tenancy preservation effort by Community Action. Moving on from sort of capital investments that we've made, we've also sort of made some formal votes to support different initiatives and legislation, including a lot of state legislation. One of our former co-chairs, Erica Pydade, was very great at keeping track of key legislation for us to endorse and offer support to. We more locally recommended use of something called a fee in lieu of affordable units, which we'll talk more about at a specific development happening over on Pleasant Street or South Pleasant Street. Basically the developer of that property came to us and asked us to endorse their proposal. So we in turn endorsed it and then, sent that endorsement over to the planning board. We also, in a formal sense, supported the University Drive Housing Overlay District, which is a zoning effort to facilitate more dense housing over on University Drive. And then more recently, we recommended adjustment of the aforementioned in lieu bylaw framework, and that's in process right now. And we'll share a bit more about that down the line. So as far as who we, are welcoming here, and who we're talking to, tonight we're kind of an internal group, but often we're joined by either folks who are making formal requests for funds, but often other guests who can give us insights into the work that we're doing or the issues we're concerned with. So everything from somebody who built a cool set of tiny homes up in New Hampshire to representatives of UMass, both on the administrative side and folks in the program world who are building neat accessory dwellings, up right there by campus on Olympia Drive. Fellow board members from other boards like the members of the Planning Commission, different policy analysts, et cetera. So a lot of different folks. And most recently, we've also had a frequent guest of the consultant that's working on our housing production plan, which is Barrett Planning. They're basically wrapped up, but they were key partners, participants in these
Greg,
meetings.
if you could pause here for a sec.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just kind of say that one of the ways that the trust can make an impact is by connecting others and being bringing energy to initiative and getting people to talk to each other who might not otherwise. So when we invite guests, we're not only learning from them, but we are finding out people who may be able to become part of further initiatives. So please kind of open your mind and think about who would have a perspective that you think would help us understand what we can do better. Because everyone we come to meet is somebody that we can potentially reach out to and bring together so that we can punch above our weight as a trust. So
Yeah, and
to plant that idea in your mind.
for sure, Gaston. Thank you very much. And and I think one of the neat things about this group is we've flexed beyond our very formal role as a funder and kind of thought of ourselves as a catalyst around different housing initiatives in town. But that takes some creativity and thinking outside the box. So so ditto Gaston's point there. Going to just in a similar vein, some of the key partners we work with, and this is obviously not an exhaustive list, just a few highlighted folks that you might hear about in the coming months. I've mentioned Valley CDC and Wayfinders, who are affordable home developers. Valley CDC mostly in Hampshire County, Wayfinders a bit more regionally in Western Massachusetts. The Amherst Community Land Trust is a younger, affordable housing organization based here in Amherst, obviously. And they're, sort of focused mostly on home ownership and have some neat stuff in the works, which one idea we just heard about, I think 2 months ago. They were our primary guest. Representative Dome and her staff are active participants in this effort, either Representative herself or one of her team members is almost always on these meetings, and she's been a key conduit to what's happening in Beacon Hill, and how we can weigh in on the goings on there, especially in regard to housing stuff generally, but housing trust stuff specifically. There's been various pieces of legislation over the years. The Amherst Community Preservation Act Committee is a fellow board, and they thus far are where we've gotten the majority of our funding. So we work with them on an annual basis, and perhaps a new relationship to them is built into our strategic plan, which Gaston will talk about. And then the last entity I'll list here is an organization called the Mass Housing Partnership, which does a whole lot of things around housing statewide, but including community assistance. We received some in the form of a gratis consulting partnership where the state's housing trust guru, which is Shelley Gehring, came and partnered with us over maybe 9 or 10 months to develop our strategic plan. So, her support in that was invaluable. And when we have a wonky housing trust question, she is normally where we start. So they're really a key partner with the trust, and also in much broader housing efforts, overall. A bit more programmatically, just some of the stuff the trust has engaged in more actively in a hands-on way over the past year. We, as we were finishing up our strategic plan, went to the Amherst Block Party and gathered a bunch of feedback on that and the housing production plan, which was also under construction. So a lot of folks had fun there. You can see Alex. This is Alex. You'll all meet him soon. So that was a lot of fun. In a more formal sense, after producing our plan, one of the objectives we developed was some public events. So we did a forum with a League of Women Voters, which is not the greatest picture of it here, but we had between and a relatively icy, actually, January night, between in person and online, we had something like 60 people in the audience listening to different developers of affordable homes weigh in on some of the the challenges and opportunities here in the region. Some of you joined us just last month for our ADU FAQ, which is also kind of emerged from our strategic plan. And that was also a great success. We had about 55 folks in the room. Again, didn't get the greatest pictures of it, but it was neat to get out of the Zoom world and into the South Amherst Library. And what's interesting about that is, we put the event together. we pulled in some great speakers and you know, and guests. We had no idea what our turnout would be, and you know, we thought perhaps we'd be talking to ourselves, and in fact, there was 55 folks that came out, which really told us there's some interest there in FAQs here in Amherst and in the region. And so that's kind of a quick overview of some of the stuff we've been doing and voting on, and people we've been talking to. And I'll pause there. And you know, I don't know if we want to take any questions right now, or before we go on to the action plan.
Yeah. Questions. What are you surprised to see? What are you curious about? Having heard a little bit about any thoughts, Robert, Bob, Carla. Please jump in as you're moved to do so. But we'll have plenty more time, so perhaps I can go into the strategy that we adopted, so you can see how we're trying to make sense of our role. So fundamentally, here, you know, we crafted our strategy around 3 major areas of activity. The first, perhaps the most fundamental, provoking development. And so we set ourselves a concrete target of 200 or more homes, whether for rent or ownership, in the next 5 years, and targeting, you know, affordability based on average median income. So homes that are accessible to people below 100% of average median income over the next 5 years. So it's a reach target, at the same time a drop in the bucket of what we really need. So critical to get motivated by that number. Here is a set of the strategies that we kind of unpack from that larger goal. One is to identify parcels that could be used for development. The town has a number of properties. There are some private owners with properties, and so that's B, seeking a land donation, and we'll have some updates about possibilities on that front. We have historically focused more on rentals, and we would like to also support home ownership, as we've begun to do more recently. Other, you know, development approaches that are here involve thinking about non-conforming lots. This letter E is really a kind of broader goal of how can we make Amherst a place that has a propensity to development. What can we, what dots can we connect? What institutions could we foment? And so we see the effort to tell people about ADUs, bring banks in, as something that enhances the development ecosystem in a way that could, at the very minimum, you know, add housing stock that reduces pressure on rents. And finally, it's important for us to be collaborating across the town, and so we are keen to keep our eye on the inclusionary zoning, and I'll say a little more in a bit about our proposal to town council on how to amend the current bylaw. You know, funding is critical to this development. I mean, you could think of funding as a means to the end. On the other hand, without funding, we're not even in a position to undertake development activities. And so we set it forth as its own pillar of our strategy. And again, we set a target, a reach target of $4 million. And we can look at the different strategies that we've articulated. And you heard at our last meeting about B, the objective to have a standard Community Preservation Act contribution, so that we have some kind of consistency and reliability. And so we have less uncertainty about future funding. And also initiatives in terms of real estate transfer fees. And we're, you know, open to your ideas and what imagination we can bring to ways that we can be connecting funding to development. And then, you know, finally, it's really important for us to be bringing information and making people aware of opportunities. So that ADU event last month was as much about development as it is about education. and making sure people are aware of the opportunities that are created by state law and by financing opportunities and so on. And so Allegra has been chairing the education subcommittee, and it was her group that put in the energy to partner with the League of Women Voters and put on that great event in January. And so we set ourselves a target in the strategy to be engaging across the town, to have at least one annual sort of community meeting to engage with residents. And in effect, we've had a couple of these between the block party and the ADU event. And we want to be in a position to pitch into things that are being sponsored by other groups, where it enhances the overall objectives of our trust. Relationship building is absolutely fundamental to what we do. And you can think of that in terms of development, or you can think of it in terms of engagement. Either way, it's squarely in our bailiwick and critical to achieving our success. And so this in lieu fee, all not too complicated, but in effect, if you are a developer and you're building a certain number of units or more, the bylaw requires you to include a certain number of affordable units. Developers then have the option to request a waiver of that requirement based on contributing a payment. And so we are looking forward to receiving a substantial payment, over $1 million, later this year. And our recommendation, based on the experience of that request and the position that the town took, was that it shouldn't be a fixed amount. Why? Because there are different kinds of properties and markets are changing, and there should be, we thought, some flexibility. So we proposed to the town council that the bylaw be amended to provide a range so that the planning board could choose an amount between X and Y amounts. Again, I'll save you the details for later, but our proposal is that there be some flexibility in what that in lieu payment should be, based on the variety of circumstances that you can never kind of fully codify in advance. And we're due for our annual application for funding in a couple months.
Great. Thanks, Gaston. So I will keep moving here. As far as, we often have a practice of just doing general town updates on matters related to housing in these meetings. And some of this relates back to our core work. Some of it's a bit more peripheral, but in any case, there is a lot going on with ADUs right now. And so the town is in the process of updating our bylaw to sort of sync with the recent state legislation that passed, and do a couple other things. That's actually along with a descriptive memo. It's in the packets that were sent out. And there's some neat stuff in that proposed town bylaw. That'll actually be at the planning board, I believe, on the same day as the inclusionary matter on the 6th of August. And both matters should also soon be at the council community resources committee, probably in August as well. But one thing I'll just note about the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, the update of it is that along with sort of complying with state law, they're also doing some cool things where they're creating a sort of what they're calling, alongside the quote unquote protected use accessory dwelling unit, which is mandated by the state law. They're also creating a more generous local ADU, which among other things, probably as it's written now, could be larger in size. As it's written now, that local ADU would maintain the requirement of owner occupancy. But I think with the local, with the protected use ADU along with it, I think it's a pretty neat compromise. And so for some homeowners who do plan to live in one of the two homes, giving them the option to do something a little bit bigger than the protected use version is a neat thing. It could open up some other doors too, which I can talk more about if folks are interested in that. In the spirit of sort of collaboration and just awareness of market rate development, which often, as Gaston mentioned, includes affordable units as part of our inclusionary bylaw. There is a current proposed market rate development down near Atkins in South Amherst area, kind of south of Hampshire College. That I believe has, as it currently stands, proposed has about 17 affordable units, roughly. I forget the exact number. And that is currently, they're working with the Conservation Commission. And so that's kind of still in the weeds in that process. But they continue to be working with public boards to try and get that development approved. And that's just a market rate development, which would have the inclusionary units. We don't have a formal relationship to that development as the trust. Something that certainly we care more about as the trust, and hopefully will have a formal investment to eventually, but is still something we're trying to bring into fruition, is the redevelopment of the former VFW site into a shelter plus supportive housing, which is a sort of emergent statewide model of how to approach shelter. So the town, with ARPA money, which is the federal relief program of a few years back, the town used some of our ARPA money to purchase the former VFW site, and the goal is to redevelop it into shelter and housing. There is a neat overview of that project and a sort of a visioning effort of how it might work, which you can find on a trust webpage. We engaged an architect last year to sort of help us do some visioning around that and come up with some concepts, and they did that. So where we are now is on hopefully the verge within, I'd like to say within a month. We have a very close to complete RFP. Just have a couple I's to dot and T's to cross before that goes out. But the hope is to release that very soon and attract a partner who could develop that for the town. And then finally, there's also an effort underway with the Southeast Street School, which is an older school property down on the South Amherst Common. We've actually, as it turns out, are working with the same architecture firm to do a visioning effort around what might be possible down there. And some of you may have joined us for a visioning event, which happened, I think, the night before the ADU event in the same space. And we got a great turnout for that event, and a mix of opinions, but certainly plenty of folks interested in seeing some housing there. Also, some folks, as you might expect, with concern about what might go there. But on the whole, I think a mixed response is absolutely a positive outcome for us, and at that stage of a project. So there will be a more formal presentation on that once the architect kind of comes up with some different concepts in the fall. So look out for that. And then the biggie right now that is kind of where we're trying to land the plane is the housing production plan that the town has been working on, or I should say, I, in conjunction with a consultant, have been working on pretty actively for just about a year now. So that is a big, pretty significant, 100+ page document. But basically what it is, it's an assessment of our town demographics, our housing assets, our housing needs and barriers to those needs. It looks at different specific problems and related goals related to housing choice, related to affordability, sort of our financial capacity as a town and a community. And then also looking, creating some goals around demographics, which are quite unique in Amherst, related to the statewide picture. So, it's a, that was a pretty comprehensive piece. And then also a number of strategies and then some development opportunities, which we'll talk about. There's a bunch of, I think there's probably 30 some strategies in there overall. I just pull out a few of them here to, some of those that certainly came from conversations with the trust or, perhaps relate closely to our work. One of the key strategies is going to be to do some upzoning or revised zoning to better facilitate what we call missing middle housing, which tends to be things kind of between, a triple decker all the way to a 12-unit apartment building, say, in that range. And they call it missing middle because what has happened in recent years nationally is we can build big, huge apartment buildings and we can build single family houses, but we've lost the things between those. And it's been identified as a best practice to really recover that kind of product. And so we're working on that. kind of wonky, but allowing apartments that are more than 24 units and not mixed use as one named strategy in there. Creating the capacity to do small cottage style development, is one. Parking requirements are a huge challenge in the world of housing. So we've got some strategies in there around that. A neat thing we might be able to work on is the trust is a pre-approved ADU, which is something that that homeowners could potentially use plans off the shelf that would already be approved by the relevant planning bodies, and then have a much clearer path toward building them. Perhaps a related loan program is something we might be able to look into as the trust later on. And then looking at some demographic stuff, trying to think more creatively about, how we can look at both student and senior housing challenges in town and see if we can make some matches there and do some creative stuff. And there's a lot more to it as well. I just wanted to highlight some of the things there. And I should note too about these strategies. So these are all this is basically a game plan for the town. None of these are formalized until the town addresses each one of them individually and takes them through the various approval processes. So first the planning board, and then has already approved this, and hopefully the council will soon as well. But their approval of the housing production plan does not imply any of these things are law. It implies that these bodies are saying, yes, this is a game plan for all of us to delve into over the next few years. And so, their approval will be kind of the first step, but more work to do. Back to development opportunities. So the housing production plan also lists some specific properties which might be viable specifically for affordable development. We took a different route with this than a lot of towns do. Often these site lists are just somebody pointing at a map and making a list out of it without ever talking to owners. We chose to not do that and actually talk to the owners. So we have some fewer sites on here than some of these documents might see, but we actually have at least certainly no signed deals or anything, but a statement of strong interest from these two folks here, or entities here. So one is Amherst College. They have agreed to put a site over kind of above Stanley Street between South Pleasant Street and Route 9. Or Belchertown Road, and there's a map in the housing production plan. You can see it more closely, but it's kind of above Stanley Street and Tamarack Drive there. And that's about a 25-acre site. Remains to be seen how much of it is actually buildable. We need to do some feasibility work on that, but it's exciting that Amherst College has offered that up as a potential site for affordable development. And we're really hoping to be able to partner with them on that. And then another entity that certainly one of our members here will be familiar with, the Emmanuel Lutheran Church already houses Craig's Doors, and has also expressed an openness to consideration of perhaps future development on their site. Presence on this list doesn't imply like anything's going to happen, next week, or and ultimately both of these entities would need to likely partner with private developers and sort of choose to bring something forward themselves. We would obviously help facilitate it, but it's good that both entities have offered openness to this, which is very exciting. Both are very, very compelling sites. And then some town-owned sites, which some of you already know about. We talked about the VFW, that's up on Main Street. We talked about the Southeast Street School, which is the former school property that's getting reviewed right now. Also, Hickory Ridge has been in discussion a lot. That's the former golf course, which a bunch of it got turned into some solar, and then and some trails. That was kind of the deal, and as far as the town gaining access to part of it, as I recall. And there is a relatively modestly buildable property in the greater Hickory Ridge landscape. Much of that property is wetlands, or not really appropriate for building. But the road frontage is about 5 acres. So that's in the HPP list as well. And then there's also a parcel over on Strong Street, which is actually 3 separate parcels, which acreage wise is interesting, but it is a challenging one in that it's pretty inaccessible physically, doesn't have utilities. And so it's a bit more of a head scratcher as far as how we might deploy that for affordable housing. But, if we think we can find a way, we put it in there. So that's a bit about the development opportunities, both that we're thinking about, and they're also listed in the plan. And then the timing on this, the planning board has approved it, which is great. They voted unanimously for it, which we're excited about. The council is scheduled tentatively right now. I don't think that's formal yet, but to consider it on the 21st of this month. So with that, I think I'm good. Guys.
Thank you so much, Greg, for putting it all in one place. It's very helpful to get that review for me. I guess I'm Allegra. You've been you're the longstanding member now in the group. What are your reactions hearing Greg tell the story here?
I feel like I'm old. I feel like I've been here for a long, long time and we've done some cool stuff. So that was nice. And I also feel like we've been talking about Strong Street since I started. So it crept back onto the agenda, I see. But I think there's some really exciting prospects on the list. So I'm hopeful for that, especially, I think that the possibility of something on Southeast Street would be good, and especially in that area, it seems like it kind of would potentially blend into some of the housing that's already over there.
Yes, thank you. So I'd love to get reactions and thoughts from Bob, Robert, Carla, and Paul. I'm also curious, like I asked Allegra, what reactions you have to seeing the kind of the brief history of the trust reviewed.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. And I think one of the big things that you didn't really talk about is having Greg here is a real game changer, because coordinating all this stuff, it was a planner's part-time, part of their job, but now Greg is doing this exclusively, and just his wealth of knowledge and his sort of organization of energy really has made a difference, I think, and helped the trust be much more productive. I think the lessons we've learned from John Hornick, who's our sort of the godfather of affordable housing, is you always need to be filling the pipeline. So you have to have things being built, you have to have things in development, you have to having some pre-development work on things. You also need to have some projects that you're trying to put into the pipeline to see do they work. So having activity on the entire spectrum, I think, is really important, which is what we're doing. So I think a town deserves a lot of credit for what it's achieved, and it's just pretty remarkable when you actually look at it, the number of projects. And we're just really looking at the public sector. There's a lot of development happening in other ways, but that generate other units as well. I think from the governor, we're talking to the governor and lieutenant governor, their mission is more units. More units matter in terms of driving down housing prices. And I think that, there's always it's not just what can be subsidized, but it also has to be the market that responds in a certain way as well.
Thank you, Paul. And indeed, I became chair once Greg was already, had hit the ground and was running. And so I want to give a shout out to Carol in the audience, and to Erica Piedade for being the co-chairs who brought Greg on board. So that was really indeed transformational. Bob, Carla, Robert, I'd love to just question that caught your attention, idea, something that puzzled you. Would love to hear from you.
I can start. It's realize how many questions I have and how much to learn. So it was a huge amount. I think in particular, just knowing there's so much going on within the town, different parts of the town doing different things, and I think it's just going to take time to sort of get an understanding about who's doing what and what our role is. The HPP is really impressive document. I haven't read it cover to cover, but I've looked through it a lot. You had mentioned earlier that one of the things the trust does is to support, you know, uh, sort of letter of support for other initiatives and so on. Has the trust endorsed the HPP, or so that's already done? Yeah.
Yeah, Greg,
Okay.
you're muted if you want to jump
Well,
in.
no, that's a great question. I was going we call a vote? No, so in the formal sense, no. Although we were kind of the initial sort of brain trust behind it, Bob. And the reason that the planning board and council play a role, and I probably should have contextualized this, the HPP is meets a specific state framework, and the state, in order to approve the HPP, requires approval from the planning board and then the council. So they don't require approval from us, so we haven't run it through. Although I think a lot of the ideas that you see in there come from this group. So certainly in spirit, I'd say in a grassroots way,
I mean, I don't know, obviously it's planning council and the town council that's going to make the decisions, but if, sort of a expression of support is worthwhile. I guess the other questions that will, over time that I'll have is sort of understanding the funding mechanism a little bit more, the CPA and how they're funded, and then how that trickles down. And then also just sort of really the
Bob, I think
relationships.
that's a big enough question that I think we should field right
Okay.
away for everyone's benefit. The and Paul will help us out here. The Community Preservation Act is an instrument that the state uses to basically give towns some self direction about how to allocate money coming from the state. And what is distinctive about the trust is that we are empowered to receive funds without saying we need money for this specific thing. So we're empowered to receive funds to be ready when a project comes our way. So I guess that's the short answer that I have to give you. But I would welcome additions from Paul or Greg.
Go ahead, Greg.
No, yeah, I think that's a good summary.
Oh, so yeah, I think the one difference though is that so the town voted to tax it, the taxpayers tax themselves more. If you look at your tax bill, you'll see a CPA line item. So the town is an opt-in by towns. So and then the state is supposed to match the amount that we tax, and then that comes into the Community Preservation Act fund. And there's a separate committee called CPAC, Community Preservation Act Committee, and they can dedicate those funds to open space, recreation, affordable housing, and historic preservation. And there's certain requirements that they had divided up accordingly in certain quantums for each group. But it really is mostly taxpayer money so that the taxpayers are doing, which was a very generous thing by the taxpayers of Amherst to opt into that. But it's an incredible resource. And the trust has been very organized about seeking funds for it. It's been really important to all these projects you heard. Without the CPA money, they wouldn't have been happening.
That's right. And I'll add too, and I think it's relevant, and frankly, part of the reason I took this job, is if you look at communities around the state, there is a 10% minimum that towns must spend on affordable homes out of their CPA funds. Amherst, I haven't looked at the rankings, but has to be well in the close to the lead of the percentage of CPA funds they're spending on housing overall on the trust and on other initiatives. And so Amherst, the CPA really has committed strongly to affordable housing, which is really encouraging that, and a reflection of of I think the mindset here in town. They've also bonded to do some big projects too around affordable housing, including some really vital preservation that I think happened some years, maybe 9 years ago now, something like that. But there was a a large development built in the 60s or 70s that had expiring affordability, and the CPA bonded in order to preserve the affordability of some of those units, which was a really admirable thing. So.
I'm glad you asked, Bob, because I learned something important from Paul's answer, but I also interrupted your train of thought. Do you remember your next question?
I just more long-term wondering what the conversations have been with the colleges on a variety of fronts, particularly UMass, and given the impact of student housing and so on. It's a deeper question, but over time it'll be interesting to hear what's been sort of discussed up till now, what things you're thinking of in terms of other ways of cooperation, and anyway, just a curiosity.
Indeed, I'll just say in short that the relationships, as you would imagine, are manifold and complicated. What one piece and why we have that Amherst College property in the housing production plan is because there's someone at Amherst College who is a very proactive kind of representative of the college's interest in promoting housing, in particular for staff, their own staff. So maybe you could say more about that relationship.
Yeah, I can jump in on that because I think the need for housing is identified by Amherst College and the university as a high priority for them, primarily for faculty because they're losing faculty because of the housing affordability challenges here, and they want to create more housing, but also for their workers, and so they want to create more workforce housing. It may not be defined as affordable housing, but what the university and the colleges, both colleges have is they're land rich and they can dedicate space to build. We're encouraging them to do that. All 5 colleges are recognizing housing as a major impediment to their success. I think that so I think that with the big bad bill that just passed, it's sort of the Amherst College sidestepped some of the incredible taxes that were going to be imposed on their endowment. So I think they're feeling a little bit better about things. So I think they really are very dedicated towards, or they say they have identified land that they would like to develop for housing, and it's a high priority for them.
Thanks.
Those were great questions for all of us to hear answers to. Thoughts or ideas? I'm just curious also just to know what caught your attention, if anything, Robert or Carla.
I think I don't really have any particular questions because I'm still kind of in learning mode here because I'm just trying to still get a kind of like a global sense of. But I mean, this was very helpful today in terms of how we get funding and what kind of projects our monies go towards. But it's just always important to me too, just to hear not only are there different projects in terms of like, there's ideas of projects, there's projects in the works, there's projects reaching completion, but also just diversification of the kind of, people who are seeking or that we're, seeking to help out in addition, not just students, not just seniors, but also just making in terms of families, because I think that's, and I don't know if it's if there's any intentionality or if that's just assume, the houses are big enough for I think everyone knows that there's been, in terms of student population and families, there's, a lot of them are being priced out of Amherst. So that's always just on the forefront of my mind. So like I said, I don't have a particular question, but just it's important to me to know that these projects are, some of them are apartments for people, newly out of being unhoused. And then there's people, and then there's, seniors who have a fixed income, but also just, it's good to hear about these kind of duplexes and places like that that might make home ownership available to people with families and just, anyway, so that's just, I guess, to give a little bit more transparency to my own personal agenda,
Thank you.
so.
No, that's exactly what I was excited to hear about. And I'll just very briefly say, Carla, that with that Atkins project that Greg mentioned, ahead of a planning board meeting after a conversation here, we didn't have time to really get together a vote, but I shared the theme that had come up is it's important for those affordable units that get built to be good, for families, to have the right bedroom mix, and that the facility should be supportive of families occupying those units. So that's absolutely something that is on our mind, and that's an example of how we might kind of act on that commitment. Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, and Carla, that's a really astute observation. And the thing I just wanted to reflect back is that that balance doesn't necessarily get easier. Like we struggle with it at a staff level. I mean, one of the things I don't like to say it, but it's the metaphor that I use, is that many of the lights in the dashboard are blinking red here. And so there's one way to look at that, which says we're not going to go wrong if we build something, but the other way to look is it's hard sometimes to know what to prioritize. I mean, and that's an ongoing effort, both among, community leaders like yourself at the staff level, so it's, so you're sort of weighing that, is not misguided at all.
Paul?
So Carly, if you'd be open, I'd love for you to share what we talked about during the interview, because you're coming at it from your professional, and so your work, people you work with on a daily basis. And I thought that perspective was really important for the trust. And I think it's something actually I hope that you'll weigh in on, because I think that's something we don't often consider as deeply as we might otherwise.
Yeah, and I think because I talked a little bit about it at our when we met last month, and so it sounded too like Allegra has a lot of similar clients to the people I work with as well. But just because I work with, I work on an inpatient psychiatric unit, but I think more and more, even just in recent years, so many of our patients come in not having permanent housing, and so that's always at the forefront of our mind. So yeah, in addition to my thoughts I was thinking as I was talking about, thinking about housing for families, it's also the kind of thing like the project that's right there next to the Amherst College track, like you said, for people that are like vulnerable or extremely low income, because it's a lot of people that just, I have a patient he's been on house for 17 years, and not all that is economic, but it's just seeing the impact of that on people, and to know that there's even, and I know that, like I said, there's a lot of things that go into that, but supply and having those kind of, not just having, in addition to having places that are reasonable for families, just having these kind of single efficiency kind of places or small apartments, I know there's a lot of people on the board, and and people in town who are supportive of that kind of pipeline, or making the transition from being, from homelessness. So that's really important to me as well. So
Thanks so much, Carla.
yep.
Well, also would love welcome comments from the audience based on the review that you heard, and what's kind of currently going on. Robert, what caught your attention or intrigued you as a way we might direct our energy?
Yeah, it was similar to everyone else. It's really great to sort of see more of the details behind a lot of the questions that people will generally have, and a lot of that information is really great to be in the know of. And again, I think a lot of people, including Paul, touched upon it, is that it's great to see that there's so many different projects that are at different stages along the pipeline. There's a lot of things that seem as though they've just been voted on and we're looking to long-term work on, and there's things that are getting close to the finishing point. So understanding that a lot, something that I'm really keen on learning more about and trying to work towards is the education and public engagement part. I think that there's a lot that we can do there, and I think with that comes, I guess a question of to be able to effectively have an initiative on education and public engagement is understanding kind of what is the target demographic for who we're looking to build affordable housing for. So I guess that would be a question. Is that a topic of conversation that has happened in the past? Is there, a group that we're looking to educate to then ideally move into housing, or not? I guess that's just a question I have.
It's a great question, and I'm curious to hear what others say. I think that when Greg talked about the flashing red lights, the metaphor speaks to the fact that there are many audiences whom we might, focus a message to because of the needs. So we know that there are a lot of seniors who would like to stay in Amherst, but don't know exactly how they could do it outside of the house they've been in 20 years. For example. So there are unhoused folks, folks with disabilities, working families. So there are many ranges, and the education piece would be a great one to have you contribute your energies to, Robert. And your comments remind me to share, Carla and Bob and Hijay, when you watch the recording, to think about which of our current, we've constituted the committees based on the strategic plan. Maybe we should have a different way of structuring subcommittees, but for the time being, we have this development, funding, and education piece. And so I'm hearing, Robert, that the education piece is particular interest to you. It aligns with what your day job in many ways. And so yeah, I'm excited to hear about what you may wish to be putting time in outside of our monthly meeting through our subcommittee work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, it's one of those things that as soon as you start to hear more and more and learn more and more, the ideas start to flow, which is great. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what we can implement.
Fabulous. Greg, we do have a hand in the audience.
Hi.
Hi, could you just tell us your name and then your comment, please?
This is Maura Keene, and I think that most of the older, well, not older, the continuing members of the Housing Trust know about the Amherst Community Land Trust, but I thought I would talk about it for the newer members since it wasn't mentioned in your presentation. And the Amherst Community Land Trust is about 10 years old, and it is based on the land trust model, which has been around for over 100 years, where the organization owns the land and then a homeowner owns the rest. So it reduces the cost of housing. And we have now 7 homes, mostly for families around Amherst. They're affordable in perpetuity, because when that owner sells, they have to sell it to a person at an affordable rate. And we also have about 4 projects that we're working on right now, including a larger one in the center of Amherst on Amity Street, where the family would like to sell their large home for a discounted price to the land trust, or they want it to become family housing. And there's enough room there for about 5 units if we can raise the money. So I'm hoping that you'll all get involved. We send you messages when we're having events like potluck that we're having in August, and we have a walk in the fall, and we have a annual meeting in December. Rob Crowner, who is the treasurer of the land trust, used to be on the housing trust, but his term expired. So hopefully I will be coming to your meetings to keep in touch and keep you in touch with what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Maura. Yeah, Amherst is lucky to have your initiative and the acquisitions you've already made. And as Greg noted, we see you as one of our key partners. Greg, you're muted.
Maura, do you have a date for your potluck?
Yeah, it is August 9th, I believe. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be at Claude Tellier and Ruth Hazard's house, which is in North Amherst. It's on the North Amherst Community Farm property. They bought a lot there. But I'll be sent, when we get the invitation done, I'll send
Great.
it out to everybody.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And more audience engagement.
Go ahead, Linda.
Let's see. Yes, I think my audio is live, but
Yeah, we got you.
okay, thank you. Well, I just want to back up, Maura. Thank you, Maura, for that summary. I also work with the Amherst Community Land Trust, and maybe it wasn't the best timing in the world, but you very kindly hosted a presentation that we gave sort of right before this whole set of new people came on board. And I would be happy if it is useful, either for the newcomers without taking up everybody's time, or for everybody to share the details of the 174 Amity Street project and also our recent history. Just so you know, we're happy to come back and do that.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Yeah.
And that's recorded as well on the playlist.
Yeah.
By all means, let us know the updates and absolutely explaining how the Community Land Trust works is now a critical part of onboarding to the Housing Trust because of your work.
Right.
Yeah, Greg.
And I've got Grace from Representative Dom's office as well. If I could.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grace. Welcome.
Hi all, how's it going? Great to see everyone. Just wanted to take a second to introduce myself to the new members. My name is Grace Simmons. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the legislative director to Representative Mindy Dom. It's a pleasure to always attend these meetings and see all of the wonderful things that the trust has done and continues to do. And if, as always, any questions about what's going on at the state level or any ways we can support you all, always here to help.
Thank you so much, Grace. Yeah, we've appreciated understanding what's going on through your contributions to our meetings. So thank you for your presence and commitment to the trust. Well, so, we're, I guess, fortunate given the focus of our meeting in getting us all up to speed together and on the same page, that we don't have a lot that we need to cover in our agenda beyond what we've already done. One important piece that I think we need our shared bandwidth to figure out is when we should do a part 2 of this onboarding. And it looks like the August date for our regular meeting is a date that is not going to work for everyone. And so I guess I wanted to see if we could field some ideas and begin to triangulate what might be a date that could work for everyone. And I think there would be the main priority, I think, would be to build connection as a group so that we can put in some work together and make a difference. And so I'm wondering, given the way the summer flows, whether we think we can find a date and time in August that isn't the regular Thursday, or whether we should be looking ahead into September. Can we get some reactions based on your personal schedule?
A quick one from me. I'm out of the country in September.
Okay.
So August would be best, but
Okay, yeah, that's a good argument for August. And in August, Bob, you're generally
relatively open right
okay.
now.
Okay. Yep. All right. How about others? Allegra, do you have visibility?
I'm gone 2 weeks in August, but I also am less worried about being onboarded, but
Right, yes, no
also,
doubt,
of
but
course,
you know,
want to
it's,
be cohesive. So,
about-
but I'm
yes.
gone the 11th through the 22nd.
Okay, all right, okay. Um, uh, okay, we've got that noted. How about Robert, Carla?
I'm gone the 8th through the, like, that second week of August, basically. I mean, I could do something virtually, but
Okay,
yeah, I'm out of town. Other than that, I'll be around.
okay, and how about you, Robert?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the weekend travel a little bit, but most weekdays
Okay,
I'm very open.
okay,
And then again, with enough advance notice, if it is sort of like a weekend time, I'd
okay,
be able to sort something out. But weekdays tend to work best for me.
okay. So, Greg, I don't know your schedule, or Paul, but it sounds like the week of August 25th has potential. Does everyone concur?
Let's see. I forgot to list myself in this. Yes.
I wonder if we should tentatively just shift our August meeting to Thursday, the 28th.
Okay
And
with me.
that, yeah, what do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I could do that. I want to note that I think it's viable. Well, actually, I need to double check. It's tentative. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't have to be that day.
Okay.
I think maybe we've collected the information we can collect in the setting. And so we'll run with this and follow up. Does that sound good, Greg?
Sure. That sounds great.
But I guess if we're targeting the week of the 25th, and it seems like we may have business that potentially requires vote, or at least, you know, are listening to a third party, and so we can maybe do all in one and on during that week of the 25th. Good. So I'm glad we were able to get so much clarity without too much time. So is there, do we have anyone else in the audience at this point? Linda and Moore have spoken. Anything that we did not anticipate for the agenda that someone wants to bring to the conversation? Okay, well, I think we should just think about this as like, oh, sorry.
I think Allegra's trying to unmute. Go ahead, Allegra.
I pressed the wrong button and everything went away and it scared me and then I made a face. Sorry about that. I was wondering about subcommittees. I was wondering about subcommittees. I am sorry. My brain is not fully turned on right now. Because I think Robert did bring up a great point, which was that there are subcommittees, and wouldn't it be great to just maybe give a little intro to what when we have been meeting so far, and then I will say with the caveat that I think I dropped the ball and forgot to respond to Greg's email about rescheduling our meeting from July 4th. So
there's a jubilee. We're rebooting. So leave all that in the past. But do you want to make a little pitch for what you've been doing in the education subcommittee? And indeed, this is something that will be more of a focus of our next meeting, because we want to have these groupings so that we can, you know, move the ball forward and be reporting on what we've done at our monthly meetings. So go ahead.
So Alex and I are currently the Education and Outreach Subcommittee. And when we kind of broke into subcommittees, we had some interest from John Hornick, who is the prior trust chair. And he connected me with the League of Women Voters, and we put on the event that happened in January. And I think it kind of goes along with, well, who's the target audience? Because I don't think that would be necessarily an event that somebody who's looking for affordable housing would necessarily have gotten much from in terms of what was presented. But, I think in our conversations in the subcommittee, we have had the thought of, well, who are we going to target some of these towards? Because we did have a conversation with the community land trust members who are here tonight, and we're thinking about having perhaps a home ownership focused resource type fair. And that is something that I need to circle back on with people, but it is, again, it was we were in the conversation of, well, is this geared more towards like a current homeowner who might be interested in donating their property, or is this geared more towards somebody who's interested in home ownership opportunities at affordable levels? So I think that does kind of change who you might bring into the room for those conversations. But I think widening again the net of people who we're interacting with is important. And I think it's great to have representation from the bid here, because I think that's maybe not the people looking for affordable housing, or maybe it is, or maybe, people working in some of the businesses are those, and maybe people owning some of the businesses want to give some money. I don't know. But so one other thing that we've been kind of going through is looking at other boards and committees in town to see who we could partner with in terms of what work is already being done or might overlap. So we've had conversations with the Human Rights Commission, working on putting together kind of a tenants' rights information packet. And because I think the Human Rights Commission did a really good job on some of the immigrants' rights work that they've put out. So we kind of modeled after that. And then thinking about kind of the energy committee, and if there was a way to further those, maybe it's people who are already in homes who can't afford to maintain them or keep up with what's going on with the utilities and things like that. So that's another brainchild of perhaps down the road we could have a forum about that. So those are some of the things we've done, and then we're working on kind of, I guess, marketing materials for what the trust did, like an elevator speech that we've come up with, and kind of, can we put together like a 1-page or trifold, whatever it looks like, where if we were at an event like the block party, or if we went to something like the fireworks, or something like that, where a lot of community members are going to be there, we had something quick and easy to pass out, or a really brief statement that we can kind of describe our work in, which I clearly can't do on my own. So that's kind of what we've been up to, and we would love to have more support from the trust members.
Thank you so much, Allegra, for that and for your work. I'm the last man standing in the development committee, so definitely would looking forward to one or more of you joining. And the funding committee has evaporated, so we if we agree that makes sense as a subcommittee, then we need new blood in that front for sure. So just let this simmer in the back of your mind. You don't need to decide anything now. If you want to talk to Greg or me between now and our next meeting, absolutely feel free to reach out to talk about this. If you think, this is actually what I'm interested in putting energy into, and I'm not sure it fits into any of the existing subcommittees, just let us know. The main priority is actually to create a space where your natural passion has room to act. We don't want any of this to be duty bound or choreful, but rather just taking advantage of our shared caring and excitement to do some good work together. So I think in the spirit of what we're doing here, consider this like an intermission until part 2 of our onboarding. Does anyone have anything else to to add, Greg?
Yeah, just that I want to note that the two outgoing members of the trust who were on the funding committee, I know are both available, to offer any insights and, as far as that work and where it stands. And then also to just name that I think, though I think there's onboarding to do, and in then our next meeting, I think it's also we can also have a sort of discussion worthy of all trust members' participation. I think that, and there may be business to attend to as well. We don't know between now and then what might come up. So, certainly I'll keep folks in the loop on that.
Indeed, because I think the key for me in the part 2 of this onboarding is actually kind of building our group as a whole. Those of us who have been serving and new members, all of us. Yeah, I look forward to that. All right, well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great to see you all. Thank you for being here, and have a great rest of your July.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Bye.